So let's go ahead and get started. Many of you were surprised coming to the Galapagos to find that we have extensive rocky reefs as opposed to coral reefs. That does not negate the fact that we have an abundance of life on these rocky reefs. This was at Gardner Bay in Hispaniola Island, our first time getting into the water. Now, one of the biggest representations on these rocky reefs is from the phylum Echinodermata, which literally means spiny skin. This phylum has over 7,600 species on the planet, and it includes sea urchins such as this white sea urchin, sea star, sea cucumbers. Now, I'm sure everyone remembers the name of this particular sea star. Yes, chocolate chip sea star. Now, over these rocky reefs, we have an abundance of fish species, and this is actually one of our endemic ones. It's called a black striped salema. Now, this is a polarized school. So you note one fish takes a direction and the other ones follow suit. And this is one way to confuse predators. And they can do this because they have the length of their body, what is called a lateral line, which is a dense nerve web. And they can sense the pressure wave from the fish next to them when they change direction. They can do this at night with absolute darkness without having a visual cue of the fish right next to them. Now, here in Galapagos, our most common shark species out of the 32 is going to be the white-tipped reef shark. These are common because they're a shallow water, smaller shark here. These can get up to almost 6 feet in length, including that caudal fin all the way to the tip. Usually nocturnal, but we're able to see them active during the day. And I believe everyone's been able to see the Pacific green sea turtles. We were even able to see them out on land. Now, in the warm season, they're coming into the shallows, in particular the females, to be able to go up on land to build nest and lay eggs. They also come into the shallows for a couple other reasons: to be able to rest on the bottom. They might take a nap for a couple of hours, and also to be able to graze. They will feed on numerous different algal species. Now, getting back to the beach, coming out of the water, had a little visitor, Galapagos sea lion pup, waiting for mom to come back to the beach. This particular one was going in and out among the people, looking for someone to play with here at the coastal area. And there's DJ Ricky, one of our sailors, always keeping an eye on us. Now, getting in the water here, I did mention we have rocky reefs, but we do have coral reefs. Very small ones, not extensive. This particular genus is called Procioporta, which has about 9 species. Now, this is Champion, just off of Floriana Island. Now, these coral building reef systems here have an abundance of life. This next genus is called Pavona, which has about 5 species in the center part of the archipelago. Both of these groups can take on the brutal temperature changes from 60 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit between our 2 seasons. We do have some soft corals also. This is a Gregorian fan coral, and you can see a lot of particulate in the water. Phytoplankton, zooplankton, this is how they feed. And this is one of our most common sea stars, called a pyramid sea star. And this next one, not the most common, we occasionally find it, is called a Bradley's sea star. Now, here on the Rocky Reef system, we find an endemic sea star. This is a Galapagos sunstar. Now, it doesn't look like a sea star, but it has over 25 to 35 radial arms coming off the center radius, and you can see the 2 color morphs or variations there. And this is a sea cucumber, part of the Echinodermata. I like to refer to them as the vacuum cleaner of the sea floor. They feed on detritus that goes down to the benthic area, processing out nutrients they need, and also releasing more nutrients into the system, fundamental for the ecosystem. Now, you may have been staying away from these, but if you got close to the hatpin sea urchin, you would have noted this incredible indigo coloration. Now, over the reef, we do have numerous species of fish, in particular juveniles, such as these burrito grunts. And you may have noticed some of these very small ones, kind of a pinkish coloration. They're only a couple inches in length. These are called coral hawkfish. This next hawkfish, though, it's called hieroglyphic hawkfish. It's quite large, and this is one of the few species on the reef that lie in wait. What do I mean? Well, this one, flag cabiria, which is a type of sea bass, they'll lie in wait, usually nocturnal feeding. Any potential prey coming by, they'll open their jaw very quickly to suck them in, or swim very short distances to get their prey. And this is one of the most predatory fish on the reef. It's called a Mexican streamer hogfish. This is the main predator on the pencil sea urchins, which they'll ram into the seafloor to break open and to be able to feed upon. We also have some very brightly colored ones. It's good representation from the Indo-Pacific. This is called a king angelfish. Now, on the reef, we have a couple different species from this group. They're butterfly fish. It's called a barber fish, and they're cleaner fish. So if you hang over the reef, they'll come out and check you out, see if you have any excessive algae or parasites, and they'll give you a little spa treatment. Now, some of you may have noticed some iridescent blue dots. These are juvenile fish, and it makes sense to differentiate themselves from the adults. Now, this is the juvenile of this next fish that you're going to see. It's a giant damselfish, and damselfish have a big representation on the rocky reef here in the Galapagos archipelago. They're highly territorial, and they'll maintain their own algae patch among the boulders. And this is the largest out of all the damselfish that we have here. This is called a bumphead damselfish. And you can see why there as it's turned direction. You can see the cleaned area on the back reef. That's what they're feeding. Some of the biggest fish that we have on the reef are from the parrotfish group. We have numerous species here, and one of the most common is the blue-chin parrotfish, which we can see here, most likely a female. Now, parrotfish are interesting because, for exception of one species on the planet, almost all are sequential hermaphrodites, which means they all hatch as females. As they grow out of the predator range of larger predators, or due to population dynamics, certain individuals will turn into males. As you can see here, this is also referred to as a terminal phase. Sea basses do this, wrasses do this, clownfish, and this is a very important way to have a population survive to maturity, as opposed to having one collapse if all of the eggs were eaten and they already were predetermined. Now, we do have numerous species of puffers, and this is one of the most dynamic that we see here. It's called a guinea fowl pufferfish. Now, this is also a guinea fowl pufferfish, but this is what we refer to as a golden phase. Approximately 10% of the population are this particular color morph, and they really stand out on the reef. Now, this next species, I always like to say, if you haven't seen it, you have not been snorkeling. This is our most common on the reef in large schools. These are razor surgeonfish. Now, you think a fish of this size might be worried about potential predators such as sea lions, but these have a built-in defense. If you take a look on the peduncle right before the caudal fin or tail fin, there are 3 white dots. Those are sharp spines. So a potential predator might think twice before going after one of these and injuring themselves. Now, off in the deeper water, we had large schools of numerous species of fish. This one's called a 5-spotted anthias, creel fish, or locally a gringo fish. I've had to live with that name for many years. These are Peruvian grunts. It's one of my favorite species. If you hang in the water, they're very curious. They'll come over and check you out. And this next one is called a Cortez chub. Now, all of these different species of fish were on the windward side of the island because as the currents were splitting around, it was bringing an abundance of zooplankton and phytoplankton so they could feed on them. And then these guys showed up, the Galapagos sea lion. Now, us naturalists could be giving you the entire natural history of the marine iguana, and then you'll see a sea lion, and you say, oh, look, how cute. We lose your attention very quickly. It's understandable. They are fellow mammals. And as you have learned, these have a very long maternal care period. Sea lions may nurse up to 2 years and a maximum 3 years. And one reason for this is because there is a drop-off in productivity in the ocean through our 2 seasons. Going into the warm season, that productivity drops off, and mothers have to go farther out for longer periods of time to be able to produce milk. Now, if you're waiting for mom to come back from feeding offshore, you need to stay close to where she left you. There's the large male going by. So what are you going to do all day if you're staying close to shore? You're going to play with the neighborhood kids. And you're going to harass any other species you find in this shallow area. That includes grabbing white-tip reef sharks' tail fins, harassing marine iguanas as they're going out of the water, grabbing them by the tail, bringing them back in, using sea stars as chew toys, taking pufferfish, shaking them until they inflate, and pushing them around like a football. Yeah, they look so cute. Now, take a look at this one. This one was playing peekaboo with me along the coast. And kept sticking his head back in the water. Now, I will give him credit. All of that play will turn into skills that they will need when they're eventually weaned from their mothers and have to go out and forage on their own. We also had quite a few white-tipped reef sharks, very active here at Champion Island. And maybe some of you noticed as you were going by that you were seeing a few that were laying down on the bottom. Now, some of you may have mentioned that sharks have to continuously swim for respiration. That is not the case with reef sharks. I want you to take a look carefully, and I slowed this down. I want you to take a look at the jaw, and you'll notice that the shark is slowly opening and closing its jaw. You'll also see water flow going over the gills. There's a different angle on it. They do tuck themselves in when they rest. They tuck themselves into caves. So take a look at this one, slowly opening and closing its jaws, and then look at the gill slits, and you'll see the water coming through it. This allows them to rest and have respiration at rest. Now, pelagic sharks will continuously swim when they're offshore, over thousands of meters of water. Now, this next species, I'm not sure the species name. Maybe you can help me recognize them. I'll just call them floaters for now. I saw them close to shore. Whatever the case, they do look quite happy, the floaters. Now, this was off of Santa Cruz Island at Cerro Dragon. And we've had a pretty big swell, so it's not the best conditions, but we did have a lot of life there. In front of the rocky reef, you would have found these are pencil sea urchins. Now, these sea urchins are grazers, slowly moving over the rocky reef, but I want you to look at the spines. The spines are covered by numerous other species, including incrustation algae, polychaete worms, colonial bryozoans, so they're a vector for the distribution of these other species. Also, in the shallow rocky reef system, we have a lot of small fish. Now, these are only about 1.5 inches in length. These are called black-tip cardinal fish, kind of just blanketing that rocky reef. Now, getting back to the damselfish, this is an endemic damselfish. It's called the yellow-tailed damselfish, and these are interesting because these will maintain their own little algae garden. Now, this is beneficial to certain algal species because overgrazing by other species would destroy them, but these will maintain their garden and run off large fish. Say you have a sea urchin that wanders in, they will put the sea urchin in their mouth and throw it to the side. If you're a snorkeler and you come up and inadvertently put your hand in the middle of their garden, they will come up and forcibly bite you to get you out of their garden. I'll have to say, small fish with a very big attitude. And this was from this morning at Bartolomé. And looking at the seafloor bottom, you may have noted a lot of these large sea stars. This is one of our largest, called the Panamic sea cushion, and they're slowly moving on the benthic area because they're feeding in this area on small invertebrates. In particular, they're feeding on very small sea urchins, very brightly colored sea star. Now, also part of the echinodermata are these. Now, you look to the right, that is a Galapagos sand dollar. And here in Galapagos, the species is one of the biggest on the planet. The item to the left is called a sea biscuit. Now, both of these, when they're alive, they're actually burrowing through the sand and feeding. As when they die off, they come up to the benthic area or washed upon the shore areas. Now, I was able to get this and speed this up quite a bit. This is a flower sea urchin. Now, these are continuously moving debris around their back to protect them from any predators. And if you look carefully, they almost look like hydraulic tube feet. And you can see them moving them, this particular urchin moving the material. This is one way to camouflage themselves and protect themselves from larger predators. And some of you notice the large coral reefs, and you see these lines. Those where large parrotfish got a little overzealous when they were biting the coral polyps to utilize the zooxanthellae or algae on the inside. Now, here in Galapagos, we have 2 species of benthic rays or stingrays. We have a marbled ray and this one, which is a diamond stingray. Now, stingrays, very close to the bottom at all times, do have a venomous barb on top of that elongated tail that you see there. And getting back to the puffers, this is one of our most common. This is called a bullseye or concentric puffer. They're opportunistic feeders. Whenever you come up to them, they're waiting for you to upturn the seafloor bottom so they can maybe go after and search for a little morsel. Now, we've seen these from the zodiacs, glass bottom bow. We've seen them in numerous areas. This is a Galapagos mullet, and these get up to 1.5 feet in length. But they're skimmers. They go up to the top where there's churned up zooplankton, and they're able to feed upon that. And wonderful to be able to find Galapagos penguins. This is the only tropical penguin species on the planet, the only one that possibly nests north of the equatorial line and considered the second smallest on the planet. Now, here in Galapagos, we only have approximately 2,500 to maybe 3,000. And around the Bartolomé area, possibly just 50. The only reason we have penguins close to the equator is due to the Cromwell upwelling current, which brings nutrient-rich cold water into the shallows and it's better habitat for the penguins. Now, May of last year in National Geographic magazine, penguins were the main subject, and a lot was talked about in this article about conservation programs here. We're trying to take care of them by giving them more nesting areas, especially in the western part of the archipelago. Numerous blue-footed boobies were around the coast as we entered into the afternoon at Sombrero Chino off of Santiago Island. If you popped your head into some of these lava tubes going down to the ocean, you may have noticed some white-tip reef sharks resting on the bottom. You can see the light coming through from part of the skylight. Large schools of barberfish, butterfly fish waiting for cleaning behavior. We had some new species also, some blue and gold snappers. And these are smaller ones, juvenile ones in the rocky reef. We also came upon some small schools of Galapagos grunts. This is an endemic version of the burrito grunts we had seen previously. Also, this is a wonderful one. You don't find them too often. This is called a convict tang. Now, a little higher up in the water column, we found numerous fish feeding. These are Panamic sergeant majors, which are actually part of the damselfish group. A little bit different than the rest of the members of that group that feed right on the rocky reef. Now, these have an interesting behavior. Females will lay eggs in alcoves, and here we can see a little bit darker blue male. It's called a nuptial male, who actually fertilize the eggs and is protecting the eggs from predators. Now, they may stay there for 3 to 4 weeks, protecting those eggs, aerating until they hatch into the water column. Now, if you look carefully, there are some very small greener shrimp that we have here in Galapagos in the water column. They're actually part of the plankton, not really swimming against it. And then we had 3 penguins along the coast that were just coming out of the water. They were finishing off foraging for the afternoon, and they were doing extensive preening, keeping those feathers well oiled and waterproof. I hope you enjoyed that, and it gave you an abundance of information about the interesting waters that surround the Galapagos archipelago.